Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I want to chat with you guys a little bit about major mistakes people make when they look at different people's body structure and they assume that there's training or whatever involved and not understand that it's bone structure. And bone structure is something that you cannot change. That's why when people talk about the aesthetics thing or bodybuilding thing, that's what they mean by it's genetic. It's your bone structure. Okay, and you can't change that. Uh, and again, that's something that comes up definitely with me a lot for sure, and people don't grasp that. There's no way I am structurally going to look a certain way no matter what I do with my training. I do not have the skeletal structure for that. Just like someone else with a different structure is not going to look like I do, even if they did all the exact same things I do. So that's really a problem for people who get caught up in the aesthetics things, that they think that training a specific way is going to make them look like another person. Okay? And they don't understand that different people have pretty extreme structures. And we grasp that in terms of everything else. No one out there in the world looks at basketball players, at least no reasonable person, and says, you know what, if I play basketball all day long, I'm going to get really, really tall. Okay? Because we understand on some level that what? That height is largely genetic. There are other factors that influence it. Definitely other factors, nutrition and stuff growing up, and hormones and things as we grow up. But it's basically it's genetic. You're however tall you're going to be roughly. And it's the other factor, that it's bone structure. You're not changing it once you're done growing. And you're not going to even influence it probably as much as you might think that you would. You can influence it a little bit. You can't influence it 6 or 7 inches. Okay? Again, without damaging your body in some way. In a negative manner. So, we get that. But when it comes to lifting, people don't always understand that. I'll give you the perfect example. People will see a lot of successful strength athletes who are quite strong and say, aha, see, lifting heavy makes your waist and hips wider. All right? If you consider that the person who is just born with a larger than average pelvis is going to have more strength potential, therefore, when you get further and further into strength sports, as you go into the higher echelons, you're going to see a higher predisposition towards having a larger pelvis. That's bone. Okay, that's not hormones. That's not because people say, oh, the hips are fit. That's nothing to do with hormones. It's not female. It's their bone structure. It's having a bigger, thicker frame. Same with certain things in my structure. I have a very, very wide collarbone and big rib cage. Okay, that's my bone structure. I've always had that. I've had that since I was like 12 years old. Right? Had a relatively large pelvis since I was 12 years old. I also have thinner bones in my arms and forearms. Notice I don't have big wrists. Okay? Bone structure. You can look at someone else, and then someone will think of as that classic aesthetic structure. Steve Reeves, for example. You do understand that that's largely bone structure. When we talk about genetics for body structure, we are talking about bones. We're talking about your skeleton. All right, guys like Steve Reeves have relatively light frames. Okay, a thinner guy in terms of bone structure, fairly small pelvis, and a wide collarbone. He has one big bone in his whole body, and it's his collarbone. Slightly, it's going to give him above average wider shoulders. Now, a lot of guys who choose to go that route choose to further accentuate those things. But I think people make the mistake and assume that the guy who has that structure, that they're going to get a massive, enormous butt and hips if they do heavy lifting, or they're going to get a really, really wide waist from heavy lifting. No, that guy isn't capable of having that. A guy like Steve Reeves, there is nothing he could do to develop that. He doesn't have the bone structure there for it to be wide. I guess if he got really fat, but that wouldn't be what you're thinking of, right? Because you're thinking of the muscle, seeing muscle there on a lean guy. And he doesn't have the structure. He didn't have the structure to do that. See where we're going with this stuff? It's bone structure, and you can't change that. The guys who are going to have that specific look that everyone is talking about, not that you should even care, by the way. If you're not going to be a model for a living, I don't know why you care about it, other than it's been marketed to you as a young guy and you think it's a big deal. It really isn't. It's not going to impact your ability to get girls to any meaningful degree. Okay? And I'm being honest there, guys. They want to believe that because they've been marketed that. And it's good marketing. Don't get me wrong. It's extremely effective marketing. And we know it works, and we know why it works, because we know that's how guys think. Young guys who are not getting pussy, anything that someone who seems to be getting pussy tells them and sells them, they're going to buy it. With that promise that if you do this, you're going to get a lot more pussy. All right, that is a powerful marketing tool for young men. Extremely powerful marketing tool. That's just good marketing. Because what young guys, especially young guys who are not having sex or don't have a girlfriend, doesn't want to have more sex. I mean, let's be realistic here. You talk about the ability to drive a young man to do something, to really motivate him. Now, that'll motivate a young guy. Well, it should motivate guys my age. But just because it's been marketed to you doesn't mean it's true. But it's good marketing, because that will certainly motivate a young man. That will absolutely do it. Every single time. Just good marketing. Not saying it's good morally. I'm saying it's good if you want to sell a product. It's clever. It works. Time proven. But over to the point. You're not going to have that look unless you have the bone structure for it. And a lot of the guys who you're thinking of who really have the look, how long have they been training? How much gear are they on top of it? Right? How long have they been training? How much gear are they on top of it? And what do their genetics for that look like? Better factor that in. And we come over to the point of guys will be afraid to do heavy squats and deadlifts, right? They're terrified of it because oh my God, they're afraid their hips and butt and waist are going to get bigger. Whereas in those of us who have bigger squats and deadlifts, who want even bigger squats and deadlifts, you notice that we do all this extra work for those muscles. Why? Because they don't get big enough from squatting and deadlifting to do what we need to do. That's the ironic part. The people who have really good lifts, like me squatting mid 500s, pulling over 600 in my 40s, trying to get them higher. I'm trying to squat over 600 raw. I'm trying to deadlift 700. I have to do all this supplemental lifts. Hundreds and hundreds and thousands of reps every year of all these other movements trying to build those muscles so that I can get my squat and deadlift up, because they won't get you there alone. That's the ironic part. And I have a genetic predisposition towards that already in my favor. Because people say these silly things and they'll talk about people's good or bad genetics for what? Are you telling me that the same genetics that make you good at American football or rugby are the exact same genetics to be good at soccer or basketball? You're telling me there's just one good gene, that's it, it's good genetics? Are you telling me that a sprinter and the best distance runners have the exact same good genetics? What does good genetics mean? Because what people call good genetics for that certain look is really terrible, horrifically bad genetics for other stuff. And you know what? Here's what I'm going to say. Unless you're trying to be the top 1% in any of these endeavors, your genetics probably don't matter that much. Okay. Now, for the aesthetic thing, it does, because you simply cannot have that look without the right bone structure. It will not happen. But even then, aren't you aiming to be the top 1% in it? Now, if you want to look like the guy on the cover of the magazine, you're going to have to be the top 1%. But you're not going to get there because you trained like him. Okay? Using his program is not what's going to get you there. There's a lot of other factors involved. All right, guys, well, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.